Hey, Larkin Rose here, and I want to explain to you why all of the social distancing, the standing 6 feet apart, the staying at home, the wearing masks everywhere, in the vast majority of cases, is not only unnecessary, not only pointless, but genuinely counterproductive. It's doing more harm than good in the vast majority of cases. And the shutdowns, the closing of businesses and the government restricting all sorts of things is not only unnecessary, it's not only counterproductive, it is idiotic and it is evil. And I do not use that word lightly. And I'm going to demonstrate all of this without using any debatable statistics, without using any iffy medical theories or any of that. I'm going to demonstrate all of this using things that the mainstream media and the government experts have been telling you for days, but the vast majority of people haven't noticed. Now, I do want to throw this out right away. When I say the shutdowns are evil and I mock a bunch of the social distancing garbage as counterproductive, that is not me impugning the motives of all the people out there wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart. Most people doing that are doing that out of good intentions. They think it's keeping themselves safe or other people safe or whatever. I do not for a moment think all the people doing it have bad intentions, obviously, just to make that perfectly clear. Now, here is the main point I want to sink in, because this has been right in your face for days, and almost nobody has noticed, apparently. None of the people out there I see wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart and doing all this. At no point did the government ever claim that standing 6 feet apart and wearing masks and staying home and shutting down businesses would reduce the number of people who get this disease. I'm gonna repeat that. Please pay attention. This is important. At no point did they claim that any of those measures would actually reduce the number of people who get this disease. And they're right. It won't. You've heard flattening the curve, and no doubt you've seen that picture of arch that goes like this and an arch that goes like that. The area under the two arches is the same. That means they are expecting the same number of people to get this. All of those measures were designed only to slow down the rate of spread of the disease, not to actually limit the spread and how many people get it. When you see signs out there that said, help stop the spread of COVID-19, that is a lie. And every one of the experts has explained over and over again, the point here is not to stop the spread of this. That is impossible. It's way too late. It's utterly impossible. All of these measures from their own mouths, all of these measures were intended only to slow down the spread of it with the goal of not overwhelming hospitals. That was it. If you think you're wearing a mask so you don't get it, that was never why they said to wear a mask. After they said not to wear a mask, because they were all saying that first. None of this, standing 6 feet apart, staying home, none of that was going to keep you from getting it. Ever. They never claimed it was. They never pretended it was. It was just to delay you or a whole bunch of people getting it. They've been open about that the whole time, and almost everybody's apparently missed it. Now, you may say, well, whoop-de-doo. I get it now, or I get it in a few weeks, or somebody gets it now or gets it in a few weeks. If it's going to spread, what's the big deal? There wouldn't be a big deal if there weren't negative repercussions. If everyone could sit around on their butts for weeks or months and have there be no negative repercussions, and then they go out and it spreads and, does what it does, okay, whoop-de-doo. I wouldn't be making this video. I wouldn't be hollering about this. I wouldn't be screaming at people to please pay attention even to what the experts are telling you, because you are doing things that will make this worse out of the best of intentions. You think you're doing it to keep yourself safe and to keep other people safe. You're not. And if you pay attention to what the experts say, you will see that what they are doing is irresponsible and evil. They are making you do things that are making this worse. So, the goal of not overwhelming the hospitals. Once upon a time, that was a good idea. And there are a few hospitals that got overwhelmed. The vast majority of hospitals right now, not only are they not overwhelmed, they're empty. They're laying off nurses right and left. They're firing people. They're not doing other procedures. A lot of people who need important procedures aren't getting it because the hospitals are dead all over the place. Now, there may be a few that are still crowded. A few of the ones that all the COVID-19 patients are being sent to are still overwhelmed. Lots and lots aren't. If there are new cases, send it to the lots and lots that aren't. At this point, to prolong it in the name of flattening the curve is utterly pointless. The curve is flattened. It already happened. A lot of hospitals are empty. There's nobody in the ERs. They're not doing anything. This is on the mainstream news. This is all over the internet. You can see it all over the place. If the only goal was to delay it, it's delayed. Now, you can debate whether all these social distances even did that, because in different places that did or didn't do it, there's not that big a difference. But I don't even care about that. I don't even care about debating that. Even if you accept their claim that all this social distancing flattened the curve, it happened. It's done. And if you ignore the real damage to society being done by continuing to do social distancing, you are making it worse. Here's a point that so many people miss. They see numbers thrown out there. They see percentages. At first, they saw mortality rates like 4.7. Blah. That was a lie from the beginning. This is not controversial. All of the experts have backtracked and said, oh, it's way more prevalent. It's way more all over the place. Way more people have had it, which means the mortality rate is way lower. Initially, they were just measuring the number of people who were sick enough to go get tested, and then the percentage of those who died. And they were talking about that as if it's a mortality rate. And some of us immediately said, well, what about all the people who didn't bother to get tested? Like who had it but didn't go into the hospital to get tested? Sure enough, the studies in New York, the studies in California, this is all over the mainstream news, studies in prisons, studies on Navy ships, more and more it's springing up all over the place that they find, oh, this is already way more widespread than we thought. Way more people have already had it. And a lot of them never had symptoms or had minimal symptoms, never bothered to get tested, which means the mortality rate is tiny compared to the initial reports. But what I'm about to say doesn't even depend on what the mortality rate says, and it doesn't depend on taking anybody's word for it. This is based on what the experts are saying about the whole reason for social distancing, which was to lower that curve. Now, if you were under the impression that when they throw out a percentage, it means like if 1% or 0.1% or whatever it is, if they say 1% mortality rate, if you think that means that you can flip a coin and if it comes up 1 in 100, oh no, I'm going to die. That's not how it works. That's not how statistics works. That's not how disease works. That's not how they ever work. And the media has reported over and over again in Italy and Spain and the US, all over the place, the vast majority of deaths caused by COVID-19 are in patients with compromised immune systems. If you are young and healthy, your chance of dying of this thing is statistically just about zero. And the media loves to fish around to try to find a story here and there. Well, here's a young person who died of it. And they've, fished so hard that they were dishonest and had to retract some of them. For whatever reason, COVID-19 is very, very nice to infants and children compared to even the common flu. Way more children and infants die of the flu every year than this. I don't know why. I don't know what the mechanism is that's different, but COVID-19, statistically speaking, is not a significant threat to children and babies, thankfully. Lots of things are, but not this. Now, if you can say, well, over here, there's one story. If you find one person in 328 million who died of something, is that sad? Yeah. Is that a bummer? Yeah. Is that statistically something that everybody else should be scared of? No, that's ridiculous. There are literally 20 other things that are way more likely to be a threat to your child or your baby or yourself if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. All of this is in the media, but most people just look at the death numbers and they go, it's going to kill us. But back to the point, the curve is flattened. At this point, listen closely. If you have a compromised immune system, or if you're coming in contact with someone with a compromised immune system, there is reason to take special precautions to make sure you don't get this. That's always true. That's true every year. It's true every flu season. Elderly people and people who have health problems that make them more susceptible to something being the final straw that kills them, that's a concern. It's a real concern. It's a real concern with this. It's a real concern with the flu every single year. Yes, that's a real thing. For everybody else, all the young, healthy people, listen carefully, because even the media admits this. The best thing you can do is get this disease and recover. Now, you're probably saying, what? What do you mean the best thing I can do? They're telling you this, and people aren't noticing. The way this goes away, you know the curve? It doesn't come down by magic. It doesn't come down by vaccines. It doesn't come down by luck. It doesn't come down by running out of people. It comes down by burning out or herd immunity, depending on how you want to describe that. This happens literally every year with the flu and other viruses. It goes up, it comes down, it can bounce a little bit on the way down, and eventually it goes away. It has to infect a certain number of people. So the young, healthy people, if they get infected, we can reach that point and have it go down and have it stop being a threat to the elderly and people with compromised immune systems. If you flatten the curve out to drag it out, you are not reducing the number of people who are getting it. You are prolonging the potential for the people with compromised immune systems to get it and die from it. If you're young and healthy and trying really hard not to get this thing, number one, the experts have never said that any of this is going to keep you from getting it, only that it will delay people getting it. They've said that all over the place and people aren't paying attention. So if it's a matter of, wearing a mask and standing 6 feet apart, that will not stop you from getting it. It will, at best, delay it. And that's all. And they've been saying that in your face for weeks, but people aren't paying attention. Keep in mind, for centuries, with all kinds of viruses and diseases, the thing that makes them go away is not vaccines or government studies or tests. It is people's immune systems. A virus or other disease goes away or dwindles down to almost nothing when lots of people get the thing and their immune systems fight and learn how to defeat it. And yet the media and those in power focus on interfering with people's lives instead of telling people how they can strengthen their immune systems by doing things like getting more vitamin C and D and sunshine and fresh air and so on. Instead, they literally advise things that make it worse. Isolation, inactivity, things that cause stress and worry, which dramatically weaken the human immune system. In fact, as psychotic and evil as this is, the FBI just raided a business in the US for administering vitamin C therapy, something which in clinical trials in China recently showed very positive results in the treatment of this virus. So the government is openly undermining the one thing that can and will defeat this virus, the human immune system. While you're possibly delaying getting this, if you're someone young and healthy, you are delaying the point at which all the people with compromised immune systems are no longer in danger because it went down. You're just prolonging the suffering. Now, if that's all it was, if that was the only negative, wouldn't make that big a difference. Okay, prolong it. People have to be careful a little bit longer. The same number of people are going to get it who are going to get it anyway. It'll just take a little bit longer. That was the stated goal of the experts this whole time. If that was it, okay, I still wouldn't bother making this video about it because it's not that big a difference. Here is why I say the shutdowns are genuinely evil. I know so many Americans are utterly clueless about economics and how it works. And apparently people think that half the country can sit on their butts for a month and then all get up and go back to work and everything will be fine. It won't be fine. It already isn't fine. A couple days ago, the unemployment rates jumped by 26 million people. They may be in the 30s or up to 40 million by now. I don't know, because it was just climbing and climbing. Those are lives destroyed. And maybe some of them will find jobs again. Maybe the economy won't crumble into a complete heap. In the meantime, that level of unemployment absolutely has a predictable rate of increasing suicides. That's already happening. Increasing drug overdoses. It's already happening. Increasing child abuse. It's already happening. Increasing domestic violence. It's already happening. Increasing depression. It's already happening. Causing financial disaster and stress for so many people all over the place. It's already stinking happening. You can't just pull the plug on the economy and plug it back in a month later and think, okay, now everything's going to be fine. The solutions of this are going to cost way more lives than the virus itself, by a long shot. Here's the completely horrible part of this. In addition to suicides being up, crime and violence being up, which we're already seeing all over the place. Oh, and people who need other medical treatments aren't getting it. People who need, treatments for everything under the sun, heart problems and cancer and this and that and the other thing, a lot of them aren't getting the treatments, which means they're now more at risk because the hospitals are like, we're not letting you in because so many things are closed down all over the place. What I just described, all the things happening in the US, well, some of them, there's more than that, negative ramifications of these ridiculous solutions, the US is going to get the easy brunt of it. The rest of the world, the mainstream media is already reporting this. The rest of the world is going to see millions of people starving to death from the solutions. And the idiotic media is saying, COVID-19 is going to cause this famine. No, it's not. Government shutdowns destroying the economy are going to cause millions of people to die. It isn't this stupid virus. You look in India, they're not even up to 1,000 deaths in a population of 1 point whatever billion people. But the shutdowns are destroying the economy. And there's a bunch of people over there saying, we're going to be starved. We're literally going to be starved. There's people starving in India on a daily basis anyway. So all those bad, effects that I was just talking about in the US, that's going to be easy. That's going to be gentle. Yeah, tens of thousands of people are going to die from these solutions in the US. It's going to be way worse than that in the rest of the world. Now, here's what really matters. If people get scared, if you get scared and you decide, that sounds like a risk, I'm going to stay home. Okay, you should have the choice to do that. Nobody is trying to force you to go to work or force you to go for a walk or force you to go to a store. If you feel safe staying at home and you think it's a risk to you, if you don't, then stay at home. You're allowed to do that. But the people who weigh the risks themselves as grown-ups and say, I believe the risk to myself from this disease is way less to the risk to me and my family and the other people I produce for and trade with if I don't go be productive. They're not allowed to make that choice because government, the governors, the mayors, a whole bunch of layers of these parasitic idiots are commanding and threatening to fine and imprison people for not doing things that will make the problem worse. They are forcing people to make the problem worse. They're also throwing money at it, and I don't want to throw in a whole economics lesson here, but throwing money around does not solve the problem if the economy is not producing anything. You don't get wealth from dollar bills. You get it from people actually creating wealth and being productive. I'm not going to get into that. There's plenty of people talking about that. But the solution of here's some free money is going to, again, cause more problems than it solves. In the short term, people will go, oh, goody, some money. And in the long term, they're going to see the economy collapse and the dollar collapse and go, gee, how did that happen? Again, I'm not here to explain to you how all of that works right now. I don't care. When government forces people to do something destructive that will get other people killed, the governors of the states are forcing people to do things that will get tens of thousands or millions killed, and the media's already reporting it. And for what? Something that is 100% pointless at this point. Once upon a time, if you wanted to predict all the hospitals would be overrun and overwhelmed, okay, you could guess that. That is not the case. They're closing. Hospitals are going bankrupt. They're firing people because they're empty. To keep trying to flatten the curve all by itself is idiotic now. And to do it and ignore the real ramifications that will be 100 times worse than this virus, that is genuinely evil. So what am I suggesting people should do? Should people go and protest and go scream and holler at Capitol buildings and governors and stuff? If you want to do that, be my guest. They don't particularly care what you want. If they cared about you, they wouldn't be doing this. But if you want to go tell them and scream at them and tell them how horrendous they are and ask for their permission to open up again, okay, do that. Not sure it'll do any good, but do that. In the meantime, let me be perfectly clear. If government orders you to do something which puts innocent lives in jeopardy, disobey the goddamn government. Go back to work. Go be productive. Go get the friggin' disease and get over it if you're young and healthy, because that literally gets over this whole problem. They are commanding people to do things that will kill other people. Are you going to do things that will literally kill other people just because government told you to? Or are you a friggin' American, if you want to get all nationalistic and patriotic about it? Are you American enough to say, I'm going to do the right thing to not endanger and kill Americans and foreigners and people all over the friggin' world just because governors and mayors and those political idiots and their mindless thugs want to be on a power trip? Or am I going to disobey and do the right thing and go back to work? And if you think you're at risk, then take precautions. And if that means working from home, work at home. No, I'm not telling you what decisions you should make for yourself and your risk assessment. I'm telling you, if your risk assessment doesn't match the orders of government, ignore the orders of government. And if your risk assessment doesn't match your neighbor's risk assessment, don't you dare ask government to force your neighbor to do something which puts thousands and millions of lives in jeopardy. That makes you a coward and an accomplice to evil. And don't pretend that it's some great demonstration of your virtue that you're staying at home adding to the problem. If you think it's a risk to you and you feel the need to do that because you think it's a risk to you or you don't want to be a risk to somebody else with a compromised immune system, fine. But guilt-tripping people who are literally keeping the world alive by being productive, that is some serious privileged bullshit. I am out doing odd jobs. The governor of Pennsylvania said I'm not supposed to. I don't give a crap. The governor of Arizona, where I am now, said I'm not supposed to. I don't give a crap. If I want to do work for somebody and they want me to do work for them, and I am a tiny little part of that massive productive economy that keeps the world running, I don't give a crap what the politicians tell me. I don't give a crap what their mindless badge-wearing idiots tell me. I do want to throw in a moment of praise for the cops and the sheriffs who had the spine to come out and say, we're not going to enforce this Nazi garbage because this is ridiculous. So bravo to them for at least drawing a line somewhere and saying, no, we're not going to play Gestapo today. Good for you. For the rest of you normal people out there, you need to understand that even what the experts are telling you shows that all these social distancing, even trying to slow down the spread at this point, makes the situation worse. Again, if you're one of the people with compromised immune systems, yes, isolate, hide, do whatever you think you have to keep yourself safe. If you're somebody who comes in contact with them, keep that in mind and either keep yourself safe or keep a distance, whatever you have to do for that very small percentage of the population whose lives are actually threatened by this thing. For the rest of us, which is the vast majority of us, do not let imbecilic evil orders from government convince you to be an agent of evil. Unwittingly, not because you're trying to be bad, but if you can be scared into hiding somewhere and letting all these problems get worse, then whatever, they're gonna get worse, because I promise you, government is not the solution. Their commands and control freakism is not gonna make this go away. They're going to make it worse. They already made it worse. And I wish people would think for themselves enough to realize this is genuinely the most glaring example I have ever seen of Americans willingly going along with their own destruction and the destruction of their neighbors. This is not, we're all in it together. This is not, you're protecting yourselves and you're protecting other people. If you thought that, that's fine. But look at what the experts are saying. They're not saying doing this will prevent you from getting it. They're only saying it might delay you getting it and a whole bunch of other people getting it. That's all. At this point, delaying it is worse than getting it now, if you're among the majority who's young and healthy. And they admit all of this, and people are missing it. And it's just infuriating, because some of us from the beginning were saying, when unemployment goes through the roof, so does suicide, so does domestic violence. When the economy grinds to a halt in so many places, there is suffering here, and there is way worse suffering in the rest of the world. Do not contribute to death and suffering just because government told you to. Learn to disobey immoral orders. And when everyone can finally see how much worse the solutions were than the actual problem, when there is no doubt in anybody's mind that this virus was way less of a threat than they said, and the solutions were way more of a threat, you remember who did it. You remember the cops who enforced it. You remember the mayors and the governors and the politicians who forced this, who forced something that is making so many people suffer and die in the name of their fake-ass compassion. You remember who did it, and you make them pay for it.